remained blissfully unaware of the sinister plans that lay in the shadows. Kofi, with his charming demeanor and seemingly sincere intentions, had successfully concealed his true motives. However, behind closed doors, the truth of his greed and deception was about to be revealed. 2 days before their departure, Kofi received a phone call. He had been expecting the call, and as soon as his phone buzzed, he stepped outside to take it in the secluded backyard of his apartment. "Hello, Chief," Kofi answered, his voice barely above a whisper. "Is everything in place?" A deep, menacing voice inquired from the other end. Kofi glanced around to ensure no one was listening. "Yes, everything is going according to plan. She has no idea." "Good," the voice replied. "Remember, the payment of 20 million naira will be transferred once the ritual is complete. This is a one-time opportunity, Kofi. Do not fail." Kofi's hand trembled slightly as he clutched the phone. The enormity of the situation weighed heavily on him, but the greed for such an enormous sum clouded his judgment. "I understand. I won't let you down." The call ended abruptly, leaving Kofi in the oppressive silence of his own thoughts. He had never imagined himself capable of such a betrayal, but the lure of wealth and the promise of a better life had driven him to this point. Chief Okafor, who had contacted him, was a powerful figure in the underworld, known for his ruthless pursuit of power through ritualistic sacrifices. Kofi remembered the first time he had met this man. It was at a lavish party, where he had been introduced by a mutual acquaintance. The rich man had exuded an aura of authority and intimidation, his eyes piercing through the crowd as if assessing their worth. "You seem like a smart man," Chief Okafor had said, his voice dripping with calculated charm. "I have a proposition for you, one that could change your life forever." Kofi had listened, intrigued but wary. The man had laid out his plan in meticulous detail, explaining the ritual and the need for a human sacrifice to gain immense power and fortune. In return, he promised Kofi a sum of 20 million naira, a fortune that Kofi had never dared to dream of. "I need someone I can trust to bring me a suitable candidate," Chief Okafor had said, his gaze never wavering. "Someone who can be easily deceived and led to the altar without suspicion." Greed had won over morality, and Kofi had agreed, thinking he could handle it. He had chosen Amina because she seemed so innocent, so trusting. He had spun his web of lies carefully, ensuring that she would fall in love with him and never suspect his true intentions. Now, standing alone in the backyard, Kofi felt a pang of guilt. But he quickly pushed it aside, convincing himself that this was his only chance to escape his mediocre life. He would go through with the plan, and once it was done, he would be free to live a life of luxury and comfort. Inside, Amina was busy planning their future together, completely unaware of the dark storm brewing just outside her door. Her excitement about the upcoming wedding and her plans for their life together made her oblivious to the dangers lurking in the shadows. Later that night, Kofi joined her, masking his inner turmoil with a warm smile. "How's the planning going?" he asked, trying to sound enthusiastic. Amina looked up, her eyes sparkling with joy. "It's going great. I can't wait to meet your parents. They are going to love you," Kofi said with a forced smile. "I'm sure they will," Amina said excitedly, as they sat together, discussing the details of their wedding. Kofi's mind was elsewhere, calculating every step he needed to take to ensure his plan's success. He knew that once they traveled to meet his supposed parents, there would be no turning back. For now, he had to keep up the facade, pretending to be the loving and devoted fiancé while hiding his true intentions. Mr. Okafor's offer had ensnared him, and he was determined to see it through, no matter the cost. But as he looked at Amina's beaming face, a tiny voice in the back of his mind whispered, reminding him of the gravity of his actions. He silenced it, choosing instead to focus on the promise of wealth and the life he had always dreamed of. Little did he know that fate had other plans, and the path he had chosen would soon lead to his downfall. Amina and Kofi set off early the next morning. The journey was long, and Amina enjoyed the changing scenery as they traveled. Kofi was unusually quiet, but Amina attributed it to the stress of the trip. At a rest stop, Kofi bought a bottle of water for Amina. As Amina drank, she noticed a bitter taste but attributed it to her nerves. "Kofi, this water tastes strange," she said. It's probably just different from what you're used to, Kofi replied smoothly, his smile never faltering. As they continued their journey, Amina began to feel dizzy and disoriented. She tried to shake off the feeling, but it grew worse. Kofi's demeanor changed, he no longer seemed kind but cold and distant. Amina's heart pounded with fear as she realized something was terribly wrong. Kofi, I don't feel well, she said weakly. We're almost there, he replied, his voice void of emotion. Amina drifted in and out of consciousness, the world around her becoming a blur. Amina's heart pounded with fear and disbelief as she realized the gravity of her situation. She remembered Nia's warning to her against traveling with Kofi. If only she had listened to her friend's warning and advice. The man she had loved and trusted had led her into a trap. Kofi had taken her deep into an unknown forest, far from the safety of her home and the familiar city streets. The drive had been long and winding, the dense foliage closing in around them as they traveled deeper into the wilderness. With each passing mile, Amina's unease grew, but she had never imagined the true horror that awaited her. As the car finally came to a halt in a secluded clearing, Kofi's demeanor shifted. The charming facade fell away, revealing a cold and calculating stranger. He led Amina out of the car, his grip on her arm tight and unyielding. Despite her questions and growing panic, he remained silent, his eyes fixed ahead. They walked through the forest, the trees casting long, ominous shadows in the fading light. Eventually, they arrived at a hidden compound, surrounded by tall, imposing trees. The building was old and dilapidated, its windows dark and foreboding. A chill ran down Amina's spine as she was ushered inside. The air was thick with an unsettling silence, broken only by the distant sound of murmured voices. Kofi pushed her into a dimly lit room and locked the door behind her. The room was small and bare, with nothing but a single wooden chair and a flickering candle on a rickety table. Amina's mind raced as she tried to process what was happening. She had heard stories of ritualistic practices, but she had never imagined she would find herself in such a nightmare. Hours passed, and the reality of her situation began to sink in. The door cracked open, and a group of men entered, their faces shrouded in shadows. Among them was the man Kofi had referred to as Chief Okafor. His presence was commanding and terrifying, his eyes cold and devoid of mercy. You have done well, Kofi, Chief said, his voice low and menacing. She will be the perfect sacrifice. Amina's blood ran cold. The men began to chant in an ancient, guttural language, their voices rising and falling in a haunting rhythm. She knew she had to escape, but the odds seemed insurmountable. Her hands were tied, and there was no way out. Desperation fueled her resolve. As the ritual preparations continued, Amina searched the room for anything that could help her. Her eyes landed on the flickering candle. She waited for the right moment, her heart pounding in her chest. When the men were momentarily distracted, she made her move. With a swift, determined motion, Amina knocked the candle over, setting the edge of the tablecloth on fire. The small flame quickly grew, catching the attention of the men. Chaos erupted as they scrambled to put out the fire. In the confusion, Amina managed to slip her hands free from the loose bindings. She darted towards the door, her breath coming in short, frantic gasps. The flames provided a momentary distraction, but she knew she didn't have much time. She pushed through the door and ran down the dark corridor, her bare feet slapping against the cold, hard floor. As she reached the end of the hallway, she could hear shouts and footsteps behind her. She had to find a way out. Her eyes scanned the dimly lit space, landing on a narrow window. It was her only chance. She climbed onto a nearby crate and pushed the window open, squeezing through the small opening. The rough edges of the window frame scratched her skin, but she didn't care. Freedom was within reach. Amina dropped to the ground outside, the cold night air hitting her like a shock. She didn't stop to catch her breath. She ran, her feet pounding against the forest floor as she clung into the darkness. The trees closed in around her, but she didn't slow down. The shouts of her pursuers grew fainter as she pushed deeper into the forest. The night was pitch black, the thick canopy blocking out any light from the moon and stars. Amina's heart raced as she navigated through the underbrush, her instincts guiding her steps. She stumbled and fell several times, the rough terrain tearing at her clothes and skin. But each time, she picked herself up and kept moving. Hours seemed to stretch into eternity as Amina ran through the forest. She had no sense of direction, only the primal urge to escape. The sounds of pursuit had faded, but she knew she couldn't stop. She pushed through the exhaustion, her determination fueled by the desire to survive. Eventually, the forest began to thin, and Amina found herself on the edge of a small clearing. The faint glow of dawn was breaking over the horizon, casting a soft light on the landscape. She stumbled into the clearing, her legs barely able to carry her any further. In the distance, she saw a small farmhouse. Hope surged within her as she made her way towards it, her steps faltering but persistent. She reached the door and pounded on it, her voice hoarse and desperate. Help! Please, help me! A light flickered on inside, and moments later, the door opened. An elderly woman stood in the doorway, her eyes widening in shock as she took in Amina's disheveled appearance. My dear, what happened to you? She asked, her voice filled with concern. Please, Amina gasped, tears streaming down her face. I need help. They are after me. The woman didn't hesitate. She ushered Amina inside and closed the door, locking it behind her. You're safe now, she said, guiding Amina to a chair. Let's get you cleaned up and then we'll call the authorities. Amina nodded, her body trembling with relief. She had escaped the nightmare, but the memory of the ordeal would haunt her forever. As the sun rose, bringing the promise of a new day, she knew she had been given a second chance at life. And she vowed never to let her guard down again. Amina was taken to a hospital, where she received the medical care she desperately needed. Her parents rushed to her side, their relief and gratitude overwhelming. They hugged her tightly, tears of joy and sorrow mingling as they thanked the heavens for her safe return. We're so proud of you, Amina, her mother whispered, her voice choked with emotion. I'm just glad to be home, Amina replied, her own tears falling freely. She turned to Nia holding her hands. I'm so sorry I didn't believe you, she said with tears welling down her eyes. You don't need to be sorry, Amina, I'm just glad that you are safe, she said, hugging Nia tightly. Amina's ordeal had left her physically and emotionally scarred, but with the support of her family and friends, she began the slow process of healing. She recounted her story to the authorities, leading to the arrest and prosecution of the ritualists. Kofi sat in his dimly lit apartment, the weight of his recent actions pressing heavily on his mind. He had failed to accomplish his mission for the ritual sacrifice, and he knew there would be severe consequences. Chef Okafor's menacing words echoed in his head. This is a one-time opportunity, Kofi. Do not fail. Now, the once promising future filled with wealth and power seemed to slip further away, replaced by a gnawing fear of retribution. As he contemplated his next move, Kofi was unaware that the police were closing in on him. Amina's daring escape and subsequent reports to the authorities had set off a chain of events that would lead to his inevitable capture. Amina had provided the police with crucial information, including descriptions of the compound, the men involved, and the ominous details from the conversation she had when she was captured. Armed with this intelligence, the police had launched a full-scale investigation into the ritualistic practices and the individuals behind them. Detective Durojaye, a seasoned officer with a reputation for his relentless pursuit of justice, had taken a personal interest in the case. He was determined to bring Kofi and his accomplices to justice, recognizing the grave danger they posed to innocent lives. With his team, he began piecing together the clues, tracking Kofi's movements, and identifying his connections. The break in the case came when the police traced a phone call from Kofi to Chief. The call had been intercepted and recorded, revealing damning evidence of their involvement in the ritualistic activities. Armed with this crucial lead, Detective Durojaye secured a warrant for Kofi's arrest. On the day of the raid, the police surrounded Kofi's apartment building, their vehicles strategically positioned to block any potential escape routes. The tension in the air was palpable as Detective Durojaye briefed his team, outlining the plan to apprehend Kofi and gather further evidence from his residence. Remember, Durojaye instructed, we need to move quickly and efficiently. Kofi is dangerous and may try to flee or resist arrest. Stay alert and follow the protocol. As the team approached the apartment, they moved with precision, their footsteps silent against the cold concrete floors. Detective Durojaye led the charge, his heart pounding with anticipation. He signaled for the officers to take their positions, and then, with a swift motion, they burst through the door. Kofi was caught off guard, his eyes widening in shock as the officers stormed in. He instinctively reached for his phone, but before he could make a call, two officers tackled him to the ground, securing his hands behind his back with handcuffs. "You're under arrest, Kofi," Detective Durojaye announced, his voice firm and authoritative. "You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." Kofi struggled briefly, his mind racing as he realized the gravity of his situation. There was no escape, no way to talk his way out of this. The game was up. As Kofi was led out of the apartment, Detective Durojaye and his team began a thorough search of the premises. They found the notebook with detailed plans, including the names of the other ritualists and contacts associated with Chief Okoro. This evidence would prove crucial in dismantling the entire operation and bringing justice to those who had suffered at their hands. News of Kofi's arrest spread quickly, and the media swarmed the scene, eager to capture the dramatic turn of events. Reporters clamored for details, their cameras flashing as Kofi was escorted to the waiting police vehicle. He kept his head down, his once confident demeanor now replaced by a sullen resignation. Back at the police station, Kofi was processed and placed in an interrogation room. Detective Durojaye sat across from him, studying the man who had betrayed his fiancée for the promise of wealth and power. "Kofi," Durojaye began, his voice calm but stern, "it's over. We have enough evidence to put you away for a long time. The best thing you can do now is cooperate and help us bring down Chief and the others involved." Kofi remained silent, his eyes fixed on the table in front of him. He knew that cooperating might be his only chance to lessen his sentence, but the fear of retribution from Chief Okoro and his associates loomed large in his mind. Days turned into weeks as the investigation unfolded. Kofi eventually began to cooperate, providing information that led to the arrest of Chief Okoro and several other key figures in the ritualistic network. The police raided the hidden compound in the forest, rescuing other potential victims and gathering further evidence of the heinous activities that had taken place there. Amina, now safe and recovering from her ordeal, followed the news closely. She felt a mixture of relief and sorrow as she learned of Kofi's arrest and the dismantling of the ritualistic network. She had loved him once, but his betrayal had left deep scars. As the trial approached, Amina decided to testify, determined to ensure that justice was served for herself and the other victims. Her courage and resilience became a beacon of hope for many, inspiring others to speak out against such atrocities. In the courtroom, Kofi faced the consequences of his actions. He listened as the evidence was presented, the testimonies of the victims echoing through the chamber. His once bright future was now reduced to a series of dark choices and lost opportunities. Detective Durojaye watched from the sidelines, satisfied that justice was being served. He knew that the battle against such evil was far from over, but he took solace in the knowledge that one more dangerous individual was off the streets. Kofi was sentenced to a long prison term, his dreams of wealth and power shattered. As he was led away, he couldn't help but reflect on the choices that had led him to this point. Greed had consumed him, blinding him to the true value of trust, love, and humanity. Amina, surrounded by her family and friends, felt a sense of closure. The ordeal had tested her in ways she had never imagined, but she emerged stronger and more determined to live her life free from the shadows of betrayal. The future was uncertain, but she knew she had the strength to face whatever came next, with the support of those who truly cared for her. Amina's parents were her rock during her recovery. They showered her with love and care, helping her navigate the emotional turmoil that followed her ordeal. With time, Amina began to heal, both physically and emotionally. She found strength in sharing her story, becoming an advocate for women's safety and empowerment. Her experience, though harrowing, became a source of inspiration for others who had faced similar dangers. Amina realized that her survival was not just a personal victory, but a testament to the strength and resilience of women everywhere. Months passed, and Amina slowly rebuilt her life. The support of her family and friends was unwavering, and she found new purpose in her advocacy work. She partnered with local organizations to raise awareness about ritualistic practices and to support survivors of such ordeals. Amina's story was featured in newspapers and on television. She spoke at conferences and workshops, sharing her experiences and encouraging others to speak out against the dangers that lurked in the shadows. Her voice became a powerful tool for change, and she found fulfillment in knowing she was making a difference. One evening, Nia visited Amina. The two friends sat in Amina's backyard, sipping juice and reminiscing about old times. Nia had been a constant support through Amina's recovery, and their friendship had grown even stronger. Amina, I've been thinking, Nia said, her eyes thoughtful. Why don't we start a foundation? We could help other women who've been through similar experiences. Amina's eyes lit up with excitement. That's a wonderful idea, Nia. We could provide support, resources, and a platform for their voices to be heard. They spent the rest of the afternoon brainstorming and planning, their enthusiasm contagious. The foundation would be a beacon of hope, offering assistance and advocacy to those in need. With the support of their community, Amina and Nia launched the foundation. They named it Hope's Voice, symbolizing the strength and resilience of survivors. The foundation provided counseling, legal assistance, and educational programs to empower women and raise awareness about ritualistic practices. Amina and Nia worked tirelessly, their passion driving them forward. They collaborated with local leaders, government officials, and other organizations to create a network of support. The foundation quickly gained recognition, and their efforts began to make a tangible difference. A year had passed since the launch of Hope's Voice, and the foundation held a celebration to mark the occasion. Amina and Nia stood on the stage, looking out at the crowd of supporters and survivors who had gathered. We have come a long way, Amina said, her voice strong and clear. But our journey is far from over. Together, we will continue to fight for justice, for safety, and for the empowerment of women everywhere. The crowd erupted in applause, their spirits lifted by the progress they had made. Amina felt a deep sense of pride and gratitude, knowing that their work was making a real difference. Hope's voice continued to grow, expanding its reach to other regions and countries. Amina and Nia traveled extensively, sharing their message and collaborating with international organizations. As time passed, Amina began to open her heart to the possibility of love again. She met Bayowa, a kind and supportive man who admired her strength and dedication to her cause. One Saturday morning, Amina decided to attend a community development workshop focused on women's empowerment and local entrepreneurship. The event was held at a community center, bustling with participants eager to share ideas and collaborate on new projects. Amina arrived early, wanting to absorb as much as possible. She greeted familiar faces and introduced herself to new ones, feeling a sense of belonging among these passionate individuals. As she scanned the room, her eyes fell on a man standing by a display of handmade crafts. He was engaged in a lively conversation with an elderly woman, his eyes sparkling with genuine interest. Intrigued, Amina approached the display, pretending to examine the items. The man noticed her and smiled warmly. Hello, I'm Bayowa, these crafts are amazing, aren't they? Amina smiled back. Yes, they are. I'm Amina. It's great to see so many talented artisans here. Bayowa extended his hand. Nice to meet you, Amina. Are you involved in any projects here? I run a foundation called Hope's Voice. We work to empower women and fight against ritualistic practices and gender-based violence, Amina explained. Bayowa's eyes widened with admiration. I've heard about Hope's Voice. Your work is incredibly inspiring. I run a non-profit focused on community development and education, and I've been looking for ways to collaborate with organizations like yours. Amina's curiosity was piqued. They spent the rest of the morning discussing their respective projects, sharing ideas and finding common ground. Bayowa's genuine interest in her cause and his passion for making a difference struck a chord with Amina. As the workshop progressed, Amina and Bayowa found themselves paired up in a group activity, brainstorming ways to improve local education systems. Their collaboration was seamless, and Amina was impressed by Bayowa's insights and dedication. During a break, Bayowa turned to Amina. Would you like to grab a coffee sometime? I'd love to continue our conversation and explore potential collaborations. Amina hesitated for a moment, then smiled. I'd like that, Bayowa. Over the next few weeks, Amina and Bayowa met frequently. Their conversations flowed effortlessly, and Amina found herself looking forward to their meetings. Bayowa's kindness and understanding provided a much-needed balm to her wounded heart. One afternoon, they decided to visit a local community garden that Bayowa's non-profit had helped establish. As they walked among the flourishing plants and vibrant flowers, Bayowa asked, "What made you start Hope's Voice?" Amina took a deep breath. "It started with my own experience. I survived an ordeal that changed my life forever. I realized there were so many women out there who needed support, who needed someone to fight for them. So, I decided to be that someone." Bayowa looked at her with admiration. "You're incredibly brave, Amina. Your strength is inspiring." Amina felt a warmth spread through her. "Thank you, Bayowa. It hasn't been easy, but knowing that I'm making a difference keeps me going." Bayowa nodded. "I understand. My work in community development stems from a similar place. I grew up in a community that lacked basic amenities, and I wanted to change that. Giving back has always been my way of honoring where I come from." Their shared passion for helping others deepened their bond. They often found themselves lost in conversation, sharing dreams of a better future and the steps they were taking to make those dreams a reality. One evening, as they walked along the beach, Bayowa took Amina's hand. The sound of the waves crashing against the shore provided a soothing backdrop to their conversation. "You've brought so much light into my life, Amina. I want to be there for you, always." Amina smiled, feeling a warmth she hadn't known in years. "Thank you, Bayowa. Your love and support mean everything to me." Bayowa stopped and turned to face her, his eyes reflecting the sincerity of his words. "Amina, I want to build a future with you. Together, we can achieve so much more. Will you let me be a part of your journey?" Amina's heart swelled with joy and gratitude. "Yes, Bayowa, I'd like that very much." Their relationship blossomed slowly, built on mutual respect and shared values. Amina found herself trusting again, her heart mending with each passing day. Bayowa's presence brought a new sense of peace and stability to her life, reminding her that even after the darkest storms, there is always a chance for a new beginning. The foundation's success was celebrated with an annual gala, bringing together supporters, survivors, and allies. Amina and Nia took the stage, their hearts full of gratitude. "We have achieved so much, but there is still work to be done," Amina said. "We will continue to fight for justice, for safety, and for the empowerment of women everywhere. Thank you for standing with us." The crowd cheered, their spirits lifted by the progress they had made. Amina felt a deep sense of pride and gratitude, knowing that their work was making a real difference. Bayowa, standing beside her, whispered, "I'm so proud of you, Amina. You changed so many lives." Amina squeezed his hand, feeling a surge of love and determination. "We've done it together, Bayowa. And we will continue to do so." Amina decided to visit Kofi in prison. She needed closure, to confront the man who had betrayed her so deeply. The prison was cold and foreboding, but Amina walked in with her head held high. Kofi looked different, his charm replaced by a hardened exterior. When he saw Amina, a flicker of recognition crossed his face. "Amina," he said, his voice hollow. "Why are you here?" Amina took a deep breath, her emotions swelling. "I needed to see you, to understand why you did what you did." Kofi looked down, unable to meet her gaze. "I was desperate, Amina. I made terrible choices. I'm sorry." Amina felt a mix of anger and sadness. "Your apology doesn't change what happened. But I needed to hear it." Leaving the prison, Amina felt a sense of peace she hadn't known before. She had confronted her past and found closure. The experience had strengthened her resolve to continue her work with Hope's Voice. Amina and Bayowa grew closer, their relationship deepening with each passing day. Bayowa admired Amina's strength and dedication, and he supported her in every way possible. One evening, as they watched the sunset together, Bayowa turned to Amina, his eyes filled with love. "Amina, you are the most incredible woman I've ever known. Will you marry me?" Amina's heart swelled with joy. "Yes, Bayowa, I will." Amina and Bayowa's wedding was a joyous celebration of love and resilience. Friends and family gathered to witness their union, their hearts full of happiness. Fatima and Ali beamed with pride as they watched their daughter walk down the aisle. Amina's journey had been long and difficult, but she had emerged stronger than ever. As Amina and Bayowa exchanged vows, they pledged to support each other and continue their work for justice and empowerment. Their love was a beacon of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest times, there is always light. The ceremony was filled with laughter and tears, and as they celebrated, Amina felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude for the new beginning she had been given. After their wedding, Amina and Bayowa dedicated themselves even more to the work of Hope's Voice. The foundation expanded its programs to include educational scholarships for girls, vocational training for women, and community development projects. Their efforts were making a significant impact, empowering individuals and transforming communities. Amina often traveled to speak at international conferences, where she shared her story and the mission of Hope's Voice. Her words resonated deeply, inspiring others to take action against ritualistic practices and gender-based violence. Her, now the foundation's director, worked tirelessly alongside Amina and Bayowa. Their partnership was stronger than ever, fueled by their shared vision and unwavering commitment to justice. One day, as Amina was preparing for a speech, Bayowa walked into her office with a small box. "What's this?" Amina asked, curiosity piqued. Bayowa smiled. "Open it and see." Inside the box was a beautifully crafted necklace, a symbol of hope and resilience. "I had this made for you, to remind you of the incredible difference you're making." Amina felt tears well up in her eyes. "Bayowa, it's beautiful. Thank you." As she put on the necklace, Amina felt a renewed sense of purpose. The future was bright, and with Bayowa by her side, she knew they could achieve anything. Their work with Hope's Voice continued to thrive, and together, they created a legacy of strength, compassion, and hope for generations to come. Thank you for staying with me to the end on this thrilling journey of the Dark Sister. What themes and lesson did you take away from this story? Comment below to let me know your thoughts. Please don't forget to subscribe, click the notification bell to stay up to speed on my latest stories. Thank you and bye for now.